Thank you for tuning in and listening to Bob Bennett.
Incapable of handling a situation and either backing off or not communicating the way that I would have in the past. It was just a disaster at times. You know, it was very sad to not be able to just handle everyday conversations and confusion. And I felt like I was walking
What we're going to do on this ethics portion for your ethics credit is I'm going to have Cynthia Owens, who's to my right, attorney here, who's running for the State Bar of Texas Board of Directors. Very esteemed counsel and would make a great State Bar of Texas director. I'm not campaigning for her, but I'm just stating the obvious. And then Rick Robbins is also up here, and Rick has been very involved in bar politics and bar activities and has a Facebook site called Sunset.
What's it? If anybody's online right now and you'd like the latest updates, feel free to like TexasBarSunset.com on Facebook, or just go to the website TexasBarSunset.com. Bob and I testified together last month up in Austin.
Okay, so there's that site for information about what's going on with the legislation involving the existence of the bar. Some of you probably did not realize that there is the possibility, rare and certainly not probable, that the bar would go out of existence. That's almost not possible to happen, given the status of the legislation who's pushing it. And there's really no real opposition to the bar, but as part of the sunset process, which is, I can't remember, 10 years or 12 years?
It was 14 for the bar. I don't know.
Well, there's some period of time, every 10 to 14 years, and depending how they calculate, a state agency, which technically the bar is, comes up for renewal. And so right now, during this period, it is up for renewal, and that's caused some reverberations within what is now going on as the state bar election for the president-elect. And there are three candidates for the president-elect. There's Chad Baruch, who's an appellate attorney out of Dallas, been on the board and well-regarded. A smart guy, has probably been campaigning more than anybody else. A woman by the name of Laura Sharp, who's a board-certified personal injury attorney out of Austin, and highly regarded, smart lady, very dedicated to bringing about change, trying to improve the bar. And then Joe Longely, who most of you who had any contact with DTPA, well, he is the author really of that legislation, been on the board of directors, got on the election ballot by petition, had to have 5,000 signatures, and has been pretty aggressive on email and Facebook and other sites. So those are the three people that are running for the president-elect position. If one of them does not get 50%, then there'll be a runoff election starting in May and goes through May, and every Friday for May you'll get another email from the State Bar of Texas encouraging you to vote. If somebody gets more than 51%, then they'll become the president-elect. Here in San Antonio, here in Houston, on the ballot for place 2 is Bob Bennett and some other guy whose name I can't remember right now, and Cynthia Owens and an opponent who I can't remember either. And there are 2 other ladies who have a 3rd position, and both of those are really good. So you'll get a chance to vote on those 3 positions, and then you get to vote on the president-elect. Okay, so what is going on, and the concern with the bar today is that the Sunset Commission came out with a set of recommendations. We're going to talk a little bit about that and the status of that. Also, the State Bar itself, by a vote of the Executive Committee, decided that you as a member of the State Bar of Texas would not have a chance to see anything in the Texas Bar Journal or anything else on the Texas Bar site about sunsetting, because they didn't think you were mature enough to handle that situation, and they didn't want to rile the troops. And so if you go to the Texas Bar Journal or the Texas Bar site, you won't see anything talking about sunset, which maybe says something about the attitude of the bar. There are certain things being considered in this legislation, and I'm going to turn it over now to Cynthia to let you know where this legislation is. Of course, the Texas legislature is still in session. They meet every 2 years for 120 days. And so this 120-day period is coming up now. So exactly what will happen to that legislation is anybody's guess, and probably the legislation that was introduced in both the House and the Senate as companion bills will come out in some form, and then it goes to the governor, and of course the governor can veto it or not. So Cynthia, why don't you come and talk and maybe give a little bit of your background, and then this handout. Excuse me.
All right, so I'm Cynthia Owens, and I was asked by Steve Fisher to run for State Bar Director, and I've also been involved with the legislature back when we had a referendum a few years ago. Some people remember that. And I do a lot of traffic work around the state, and our Bar Association, Municipal Justice Bar of Texas, we had I have a lobbyist, and I've been active in that, so I'm familiar with how the legislature works. And if you don't know, the state, you only get anything in the legislature if you have a state rep to make the bill go through the House, or a state senator have it go through the Senate. So what Bob said about companion bills, and this came from the State Bar. The State Bar directed the House bill and the Senate bill, and they were identical, and that's why they're called companions, but only one can go through. So initially the State Bar wanted to take away our right through the government code, and I've got this online, 81.022, our right to referendum of the bar rules, so we couldn't vote on those, and our right to referendum so we couldn't vote on bar dues. Well, in the process, enough people complained that they took out the part, we can still vote on our ethics rules and those rules. So that stays the same. But the bar dues, they still wanted to have 100% that the state bar directors would be able to increase bar dues. Joe Longely has been meeting with the senators on the committee and the House reps on that committee and got them to do a compromise. At this point, that may be the only thing we can do is go along with the compromise. It's so late. But if they put it in the Bar Journal, we could have had a chance to maybe contact them and made them, say we didn't want them to do that. So right now, the Senate has already, committee is the one that's going out. That's called SB 302, and I put in there a link where you can go on the website for the Texas legislature, It's real easy. I don't even log in. I just put in the state bar, like SB 302. It pulls up the text, what committee, where it's pending. You don't usually get but a couple hours notice of when the hearing is, a day at the most. So it's real hard to get to a hearing. But I think we should voice our concerns if you agree or don't agree. So with these committee people, so that at least they'll know we're interested. Because right now they think we're not interested because they haven't heard from us, because we didn't know about it. You know, and I contended a few years ago when I testified for Ron Reynolds that we should be able to have different voices in the bar journal, and that it just shouldn't be strictly, you know, the bar people. So that didn't get out of committee. So, but anyway, that's what I think should happen. So right now, we'll be able to, the state bar directors will be able to increase your dues if it's not more than 10% every 6 years. So I'm elected director. I'm not going to vote for any bar increases unless it goes through a referendum and you get to vote on it. And if they want to take those rights we've had since the beginning of the state bar. So they're the ones that proposed this. It didn't come from the legislatures. They gave it to Synfronia Thompson or to Mr. West, and they promoted the bill. If we defeat the bill, which we're not going to do, then we won't be self-governing anymore. And I read all the committee statements from the committee people that they listed, and they really don't like it that we're self-governed. So we have to be on guard for this stuff because it can just come and it'll go through before you know it. But that's what I listed here, and that's what. So I also have a website, and so does Bob, on Facebook. We have one for the election, and we have one for, you know, just ours. So if you go on to Cynthia Owens FOR, you can see the different things I proposed, and you can like it or, you know.
Dislike.
Thanks. If you don't want to rate over a 4, just don't rate me. You can review me, endorse me, and share me, and that goes out to your friends, because it feels like a beauty contest or pageant, because all they said was give us a bio. And they never said, give us your thoughts on proposals or anything like that. So none of that got sent out to anybody. So really, it's only by word of mouth that we're getting the word out as to what's going on.
That's good. Okay, so why this is important for you in your practice. There are changes that have been proposed in the grievance system, and there's probably no one in the country, no one in the state, no one in Harris County, no one here that knows more about the grievance system than I do. So what we have proposed is trying to eliminate frivolous grievances. Okay, that sounds good, kind of like chicken in every pot. But the basic process of the grievance system in Texas is that Jamie, who's filming this, or Carol, or anybody else can file a grievance, and they don't have to swear to it. They don't have to be under oath. It doesn't have to be by affidavit. Anytime you have a problem with an attorney in any way, shape, or form, you can file this complaint. On the other hand, if you want to file a complaint against an elected public official in the state of Texas with the Ethics Commission, it has to be under oath. Now, I wonder why that is. One of the ways to eliminate frivolous grievances, and one of the platforms that are part of the platform that both of us are running on, is that it has to be by sworn affidavit. Second, in federal court on grievances, it has to be proved by clear and convincing evidence. To start the process for a grievance in Texas, it's a reasonable person, not beyond a reasonable doubt, not by a preponderance of the evidence, but if a reasonable person thinks that a grievance has been committed, that's enough to get you a letter. And I believe that given we're officers of the court, should be held to a standard, but that standard should be clear and convincing in order to prove a grievance against someone. There are some other issues on this site that we have talked about. There's legislation that has been proposed on grievances, but how that is coming out and how that will end up, nobody knows. So on the issue of grievances, you can, well, as an aside, you can talk about the dues increases. In truth and fact, our dues are not that much higher than dues in other states, and we haven't had a dues increase in about 25 years. And so the dues is an issue. It's important to young attorneys, old attorneys, everybody in between. But what is going to be affecting your practice is that client who says, you know, I didn't know that you're going to take 40% or 50%, and so you misled me, or you misrepresented what you're going to do in this case, and that gets you a grievance. And so the way it's structured now, I think that's unfair to the attorneys, and at the same time, we need to protect the public. Now, one of the concerns, I'm going to let Rick talk for a brief moment about what I consider sort of the swollen administrative body of the bar, and one of the reasons that the bar doesn't do more things like Advantage here, Advanced Diagnostics, Advanced Diagnostics, and give free CLE. And one of the reasons we don't have more free CLE from the bar is because of the incredible amounts of money that people with the bar pay. So Rick, address that and that only, please.
How much they pay?
Yes.
Would anyone here care to guess how many of the bar's 270 employees make six-figure incomes already, exclusive of benefits? I'm just talking straight up salaries. Would anyone here care to guess? 10. I counted from the year 2016, 29. The average salary and compensation package for each of those 270 workers at the bar, though, is $95,000. And so CLE costs an average of $100 an hour, and it's very hard to get CLE approved with the bar. And if you get it approved and you want it approved the next year, it's going to cost you like another $50 just to approve the same CLE. And all this money goes to pay bar employees, 7 or 8 of whom receive a higher salary than the governor of the state of Texas. Did that address your question?
Okay, so these are the issues that are confronting us now, and things that you need to realize are going on, and we hope that you would be concerned about. But more importantly, I think there are people here that have been on grievance committees, people that have had grievances filed against them, people that have their own ideas about the bar. And the purpose really of this seminar is to allow you to hear what doctors say and be able to question, be able to interact with them. At the same time, this segment deals with ethics, sunset, and what's going on with the bar. So what we'd really like to do, instead of having this, I'm happy to give, 45-minute talk about the ethics system, talk about the difference between evidentiary hearing, district court, we have right to jury trial, what happens with the suspension docket, and we can go on for that. But at the same time, we're here really to be of service to you, and if there are questions that you have either about what's going on with the bar presently, what's going on with the election, why is it that if you want to run for an office you have to get 5,000 persons on a petition to be able to run for office, as opposed to who is what we call anointed by the bar to run for the presidency. Those changes are being discussed now. So, with that, let me turn it over to you and see whether you have any observations, questions, concerns, or just flat didn't know that we're in the middle of an election season. Carol, you're a good woman. Thank you.
Thank you. How much influence does a very large law firm have over, let's say, solos, smaller boutiques? Do they have more influence on what goes on in the bar? Generally, we can't really say how much, but as far as bar dues, every member of a large law firm, they could absorb it if there is more fees, if there is an increase. it generally impacts people who are paying for it themselves.
Okay, so to summarize, does the large law firms in any part of the state have more influence and a certain advantage over the solo and the small firm? And the answer is absolutely. Quick example is we had a thing going on here in Houston called Enron, which cost about 15,000 individuals in this area their jobs. Out of that investigation, which sent several people to prison, there wasn't a single grievance filed. I was involved and represented R. Allen Stanford, which also was a kind of a big scandal, and the corporate counsel and people with that, no grievance was ever filed. If you have a problem with your trust account and somebody complains about it, or the client says that you charge more than you should, that's the type of grievance that gets usually filed and processed. So the answer to the question is, how many times do you see someone with a large firm grieved? And it is true that the perception is, and the true fact is, that happens very rarely. There are reasons for that. One, they have their own in-house counsel. They tend to do a lot more CLE in-house. They try to have more preventive measures. But at the same time, the perception, there's no question, the perception of the bar is that if you're with a large law firm, you're probably not going to end up in front of an evidentiary panel or in front of a district court on a prosecution for professional misconduct. So that's the other thing that's going on right now, and one of the issues raised by the Sunset Commission, I do obviously grievance defense, and one of the issues is we've had this steady increase in the last 10 years of attorneys, but at the same time, we've had a steady decrease in the numbers of actual grievances filed and prosecuted. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense if your numbers are going up. On the one hand, it's good. Maybe they won't prosecute as much. On the other hand, the perception to the public is that attorneys as a whole are getting by with something. So that's one of the things that the Sunset Commission has brought up in their review and in their documentation, which can be read on the sites that Cynthia has said. There's also another site, and it'll be in the materials, called the www.ocd-reveal.com, which is a site that has a lot of improvements and suggestions about the grievance matters. Okay, next question. It can be, I have a friend down the hall, and this is what happened with the trust account. Or hypothetically speaking, if somebody says something and they didn't get cleared with the Advertising Review Committee, what do you think about that? So now is the time to ask those questions that you are lurking in the back of your mind about either Sunset, yes sir. Most successfully prosecuted cases are those involving the trust account, because, and part of the new proposal in the legislation for the Sunset and the legislation coming out of that is once a grievance is classified as a complaint and it goes forward, they can actually subpoena your records, your bank records, and they're trying to get that in an earlier stage now that you can get your bank records without actually it being classified as a complaint. The point of that is you either put the money in the trust account or you didn't. You either wrote a check out of it or you didn't. And so that is without a doubt, it's either there or it's not. You get, obviously, probably the number one complaint is communications, okay? Couldn't get my attorney on the phone. Attorney has neglected my case. We're supposed to go to court, and I didn't hear about it. And obviously the best way to defend against that is to be able to show that there was a steady stream of emails, communications, faxes, other communication with the client that you actually did. One of the things that I always do at one of these seminars is to talk about there are two things that I think are very preventive that will keep you from getting a divorce, getting a grievance. One is to have a software package like the one called My Case, which I use, and that allows the client actual access to his file He can message you, he can communicate with you on that software package. He can see what's been filed. There's a constant stream of communication. I know what his concern is. He knows what I'm doing in the file. And it's very, very well documented. So you don't get into a dispute over, did you send a document, has it been filed, etc. The other thing that I have enjoyed and have really promoted is this blog website called AVO, www.avvo.com. And after every case that I complete, I ask my client to put a review on AVO for me. And I now have over 180 reviews in the last several years on AVO. And the chance of a client coming back and filing a grievance after the AVO review is pretty slight. And if it does come back and file a grievance, having the AVO review pretty well addresses any concern they may have. And I've even been known to knock a percentage point down or cut a little bit of the fee to encourage them to do that. And so that is a very wise thing to do, to be able to show that no, there wasn't a failure to communicate, no, the client wasn't dissatisfied, and here is the AVO review. I'm kind of on a roll here. The other thing I'll talk about is if you haven't taken the real advantage of this, we do have an ethics hotline with the State Bar of Texas. They will not give you a written opinion, but you can call them up at any time once you get them on the phone, and you then can make a memo to the file that I call the ethics hotline. It's an 800 number, State Bar, and you can make a memo to the file that this is what they told me about this situation, which is also another preventive thing.
Joe Pelton.
I'm sorry?
Attorney Joe Pelton's in charge. Attorney Joe Pelton is in charge of the hotline, and he started it, so he's a really good criminal defense attorney, but he does lots of ethics, so it's a really good site to call.
Okay, another question. Yes, sir.
We've talked about the prosecution lawyers. What about the flip side? Unlicensed practice of law. Is there any, is the bar working on curtailing a lot of this compliance professionals that are basically practicing law, but they're not on board?
The question is really where the Unauthorized Practice of Law Committee is doing what they're supposed to be doing. I would say the answer to that is yes and no. Obviously, we have issue in Texas, and as you get closer to the border, even more so, of people holding themselves out for lawyers, being a lawyer and not. The other problem is that if you do immigration law, you technically don't have to be admitted to the bar in order to appear before the immigration bar. So that's created some difficulties with persons who are not admitted who are actually practicing immigration law. But on most other situations of unauthorized practice of law, generally speaking, and Vic, I think that Vince has been involved in prosecuting people here who take advantage of individuals in both immigration and other situations. And so he's been very aggressive. His office has been aggressive at that. And more importantly, if you know of a situation where you think someone is practicing law without a license, you yourself really have an obligation to turn that in. And so I would really encourage you to do that. I think that's part of being an officer of the court. Another question. Cynthia, anything else you'd like to add?
I'm good.
I know you'd like to. Our good friend Rick always has something to add.
How much time?
2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. If someone, as Attorney Bennett was saying, and he is running for bar directorship, as is Cynthia, they want to reform the process whereby a vindictive client who's trying to extract some of your attorney's fees from you can complain about you. I'm trying to figure out a way to best ask this question, but I did a study, a survey nationwide. What percentage of bar associations do you think require that a grievance filer establish a complaint against an attorney by a clear and convincing standard, which percentage, or what percentage would you all think applies? If I told you it's about 80%, would you be surprised? The State Bar of Texas, though, requires merely a preponderance of the evidence. Why would it be that the State Bar of Texas is so eager to make it easy to file agreements and blemish someone? They now want the right to be able to put it on their bar website, any conviction against you, for the rest of your life, by the way. Did you all know that? Yeah. Why would they be so eager to make it possible to tarnish your reputation forever? Could it have something to do with the fact that they make $13 million a year peddling continuing legal education? And so they will set you free from the mystery for a fee, CLE, continuing legal education, at $100 an hour and $13 million a year. Isn't that a conflict of interest? Evidently, the bar's mantra is, these are rules for thee, but not for me when it comes to conflicts. Protecting the public has decayed into protecting the gravy train, doesn't it seem?
Okay. Rick has a certain viewpoint, if you didn't know, and if you still don't know, you can talk to him afterwards. Okay, so we're going to close this down pretty quickly, but if there's some other questions, I'm happy to answer that, or if you want to come up afterwards, let me know about that. I want to take a moment to recognize Dr. Chopra. Would you stand up, please, so we can give you a good round of applause for once again allowing us to use your facility and to help us put this on along with the sponsors. Again, if we are elected to the State Bar, we're going to push to have more events like this so that we can keep the cost of CLE down. But until we do, this is the 5th year that Dr. Chopra has sponsored this, and literally hundreds of attorneys, especially in Houston, have benefited by the CLE in his hospitality and graciousness. So, without any further ado, we're going to close this down, and we have one more speaker, 2 more speakers. So let's take a little bit of break, and we'll go forward with our doctor on plastic surgery.